guys, welcome back to Unleashed. And man, this week we're going to talk a little bit about, like I mentioned a few weeks ago, Whitetail Wisdom. I'm going to start off with a phrase this week, and I bet a lot of you know this. And if you don't, you better learn it. It's called happy wife, happy life. And I know many of us are going to be spending a lot of time in tree stands, coming up, hunting blinds. And so I just want to pass along that little bit of whitetail wisdom, because you've got a happy wife, you're going to have a happy life, and your season's going to be a little bit more enjoyable. But hey, I wanted to start off this week not just talking about guys that are going to be hunting from tree stands, but guys that use hunting blinds. And whether you're off the ground or whether you're on the ground, there's some things we need to address, to make sure the whitetails aren't going to see you. I was down at the property a little while ago that I'm going to be hunting, and I was just checking all my straps, to make sure that the squirrels hadn't, chewed them, or the UV rays from the sun haven't, dissolved the fabric. Because whether you realize it or not, the sun really does wreak havoc. And if you're going to be hunting from a blind, especially one made out of fabric, you need to understand a couple of ways to take care of that blind and how to treat that blind, because sun, rain, the elements, they really do wreak havoc on them. So today, in Whitetail Wisdom, we're going to be talking about hunting blinds, how to effectively take care of it, and how to be effective in making sure the deer don't spot you, and hopefully you're going to be successful this season. So without further ado, a little bit of Whitetail Wisdom on hunting blinds.
Hey, Bob Gartner with ANSCO, and we're back at 2020 elk camp, and today we're going to be talking about ground blinds and ways to protect your ground blind and make it last a lot longer. ANSCO has a multitude of products that help waterproof things, but we have one that's specifically designed to help ground blinds last longer, and that's WaterGuard Extreme. So not only can you waterproof it, now I would always start with my seams and coat my seams first and then go over and cover the entire fabric, but not only are you waterproofing it, WaterGuard Extreme also gives you UV protection. We've got a nice sunny day here today, and it also has a mold and mildew protectant. The biggest benefit of that UV protectant is we all like to get our blinds out early. So we've got a week here to hunt. We want to get our blinds out early. We're going to protect them with WaterGuard Extreme. We're going to have that UV protection, and the sun's not going to damage our blinds. If you're back in your home state and you're hunting and you want to get your blind out a month early, this is specifically designed to help you do that. So not only are you going to have the benefit of being waterproofed, you're going to have that extra benefit of the sun not fading your blind and damaging your blind. Feel free to get that blind out early, let the animals get acclimated to it, and you'll have a much better, much more successful hunting season. Now there's two ways you can apply this. We have it in aerosol, but you can also buy it in bulk gallons. And when you buy it in the bulk gallons, you can pick up a Pro Pump from us like you see here, and the benefit of the Pro Pump is you can put the liquid in, pump it up, and now you're just painting it on, you're spraying it on. So if you have a large format, great big blind, a wall tent, anything like that you're using out west, pick up a Pro Pump from us and pick up that gallon of WaterGuard Extreme. Again, waterproof, UV protect, mold and mildew protect. Check us out, ANSCO.com.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Unleashed Whitetail Wisdom series. I started creating this because I knew I had a lot of guys out there that love to hunt, especially bow hunt, and especially for whitetail, and turkey as well. But I wanted to touch on something today. Last time I talked about broadheads. Are we using expandables? Are we using fixed? And honestly, that's your choice. It's whatever you feel most comfortable with. And I don't really care which one you use. What I do care about is that you make an ethical shot. You take the right shot on that animal, because we owe it to the animals that we hunt to be as humane as we can be. God's gifted these animals to us, so we need to make sure that we're taking the right shot. So, but anyhow, today I wanted to talk about like hunting from a ground blind. I mean, they are becoming increasingly popular, and it's not just because I think we're getting older. Some of us, although that is one of the benefits, because you're not having to worry about getting up and down in the tree stand, in the dark or when it's icy or whatever. But there's a real place for ground blinds, especially when you've learned, where to put them, how to hunt them well, So I want to touch a little bit on that stuff today. I never thought I would say this, but there are times I would almost rather be hunting from a ground blind than from a tree stand. So I wanted to give you maybe 5 or 6 points, about, hunting blinds that you can see the benefits in. So I wrote these down. The first one I put down was that it cuts down your wind. And there's nothing more important than your scent control. The only thing that a white-tailed deer can't smell is nothing. So it's really important to be able to cut down, especially when the wind is blowing around, because it doesn't get rid of all of your scent, but it absolutely traps a lot of it, which is going to decrease your footprint, in the scent world. So number two is you're less likely to get busted, for moving around. We all have to go to the bathroom, right? We all take a snack with us, some kind of lunch, or maybe you get on your cell phone because you have to answer something from work or your spouse or whatever. You want to get up and stretch sometimes. It can be a long time. You're getting cold and you need to be able to move your muscles. Man, there's nothing greater than a ground blind being able to conceal all that stuff. You can take more stuff too. You can't be hanging everything from a tree. It kind of becomes a little bit obvious. You got all this junk up there, or your bow's hanging up there. Well, when it's in a blind, again, your movement's cut down. You can have everything. You can even buy a little stand to put your bow on the ground in front of you that all you have to do is just reach down and grab it. It keeps you out of the elements. If the weather gets nasty, there's nothing worse than being, out there and getting, wet. And one of the things I love too is deer love to move right before a rain or a light rain or right after a rain. And getting up into your tree stand, many times your butt's going to get wet because everything has been soaking wet up there. And that's nice. You can just go in the back of your tree stand, especially if you've waterproofed it, which I'll talk about here in a second, and just get warm and comfortable. And that's going to make a longer sit, which again, the more time you are in the woods, the more time you have to actually, see whitetails. I already said this. I said you can take more stuff with you, allowing you to be more comfortable and stay longer. It's safer. I'm a certified tree stand safety instructor. I have been since 2008, I think it is. And I have yet to hear of someone falling out of a ground blind and getting hurt. So that's another piece of this. And the other thing is you can take a child to your friend or maybe your spouse who's always wanted to experience the hunt, or maybe you want to teach, your child or another kid how to be able to hunt, but maybe you don't have room in a tree stand. You're afraid they're going to be moving around too much. Maybe they have to pee a lot or something when they're a little kid. Man, it's great. You can be right inside the blind, and your movement's cut down. So it's just a great tool to be able to have in the woods with you. There's some things I would definitely want to say about preparing your blind before the season, ever gets here. You don't want to wait until the last minute, go out and buy one, and then go set it up in the woods same day you buy it. You don't want to do that. You want to protect that blind. You want to make sure that you have everything covered that you're going to need to with the fabric on that. And let me just touch on that. First of all, I would absolutely recommend waterproofing your blind. And I would do it with a product by a company called Atsko. And that's ATSKO. And the product is called WaterGuard Extreme. And it's not just a waterproofer. It's got a UV block in it that will keep your blind from fading and changing colors. If you've had a blind out in the sun long enough, many of you know it, they'll start to turn even like a pink color. Something you don't want to have happen, because now that also means that your fabric is rotting in your blind, and you're going to only have that blind for a couple of years. And you're investing $300 or $400 into a good blind. You want to take care of it. So you're going to want to waterproof it. And here's the thing. When you spray it down with WaterGuard Extreme, make sure you get all the seams, everything really well. And it's not just a waterproofer, and it's not just a UV block. It also prevents things like mold and mildew, algae, different things from forming inside. And the cool thing too is that once that spray has cured in the fabric, it will dry scent free. It takes a couple of days, but once it's cured, that smell is gone. And I talked about the UV brighteners, what the sun does. Here's something that a lot of guys still don't know. You're going to want to check the fabric for UV brighteners. Whitetails are especially sensitive to UV reflection. If there's a brightener that's in the fabric, which would have been put on in the factory, obviously you didn't do it by using Tide or all in your own washer like you do loading up your camo if you wash it in that, because it came straight from the factory. It's got a brightener, some of these do, in them. So you want to check it with a black light. You can go in your garage, get a black light or whatever, and you can see if it's glowing blue. If it's glowing blue, you've got a brightener in there, and you want to make sure you treat that with something called it's like zero UV. It used to be called UV Killer by the same company that made WaterGuard Extreme, that company called Atsko. You can find them at atsko.com. Like I said, just get that black light. Take it in. It's UV is reflected like the first hour and last hour of daylight the most, and that's when whitetails are most sensitive to it. Turkey, antelope, they don't really care about blinds being set up, but whitetail are really sensitive to that ultraviolet light. So you want to make sure that you've got that taken care of. And again, spray it down with the zero UV or the UV Killer. So let's talk for just a minute about placement. Where do you put your blind? You definitely want to put your blind out at least 2 weeks before archery season starts to let the deer get used to it. I know honestly, I'd suggest probably putting it out a month if you could before, and maybe even longer than that. And make sure again you treat it with WaterGuard Extreme before you ever put it out there, so it's not going to be fading and rotting and all that stuff. And if you're in a state where they allow you to bait up to 30 days before the season, you might want to put it out there 6 to 8 weeks ahead of time. Because if you're going to put any kind of corn or anything out there, it will get the deer used to seeing that blind there with nobody in it, and they begin to get used to it. So that's just another thing. And you might want to leave the blind windows open, at least a couple of them, to get used to the difference. Because if you only put that window down in the blind when you're hunting it, they notice that difference. So being able to have that window open, again, gets them used to the way it's going to look once you're inside of it. You want to make sure you brush it in. Like I said, antelope and turkey, they don't really care about this stuff. But a whitetail knows everything, and this is its bedroom. And it needs time to get used to this stuff, so you want to really brush this thing in. You're going to want to be sure to, again, tie down the sides. You've got those ropes on the sides where you can secure it down. You've got your stakes you can put in the corners and the middle walls. If it's going to be any hard rain or any snow accumulating when you're going to be out of it, maybe get a tall enough stick to prop up the middle so it doesn't collapse, while you're gone. I always try to drag like an old, like a smaller dead fallen tree or two to around the front and the sides if I can, to give me something to allow a little more coverage. And I can also be tucking some foliage and branches, down inside that stuff that's not going to blow easily. And I can tie it down to those things as well and make it, a lot more secure. The blind companies usually have some little holes in the blinds, like little loops that you can be like sticking, branches and stuff in. But I really like to do it even a little bigger deal than that and making it a little more permanent with getting some of these heavier fallen logs and kind of move them up around it. Or maybe you can just find something that's down and put your blind in there. You're going to want to make sure that your ground is level. And you want to make sure you don't have a lot of like grass or stuff that's going to be, or leaves. Clean it all out. And again, if you've got a lot of live grass and things, you got to watch out for things like ticks, chiggers. So again, clean that bottom out and the inside, as much as possible. I would also recommend, trying to put the blind near a good funnel. That area where the deer are going to be, they're going to use that the most because it's the path of least resistance, maybe going from a bedding area to a feeding area or water or someplace. As they're moving through these corridors, they're looking for the easiest way to be able to get in and out of there. So check the trails, leading up to these funnels to make sure they've got, good deer sign like scrapes and rubs or droppings. And again, see where they're going. Are they headed back to these major food sources or bedding areas? Because you really want to focus on those areas, especially in late season. During the rut, things get crazy and deer are kind of going everywhere. But when those food sources happen, or during the rut when they're needing water, those are good places to really kind of chime in on. Check your line of sight. Make sure you have good shooting lanes. Use drops in elevation. Sometime like a dried up creek bed that hasn't been wet obviously in years, or a little gully to your advantage, as it keeps like the bulk of the blind out of their main sight. Doesn't look as big because it's a lower profile. I know when I was hunting in Africa, the blinds we had were sunken down in because again it gives you a lower profile. So, and again, this is more important for bow hunters than it is gun hunters. Gun hunters can get away with a little more exposure, but for, having to get them close, you really want to do all this stuff well. Chairs. When you want to get a chair for your blind, don't just go get the cheapest little chair you can get, or the lightest one necessarily. unless you're going to be packing in a long way or not. But it needs to be comfortable because you're going to be sitting in this thing all day. It needs to be really quiet. It doesn't squeak and stuff when you're moving around. And it needs to be at the right height for a long sit and to give you good shooting form. So you're going to want to check that maybe in your blind before you take it out to make sure it's the right height. Maybe you can get an adjustable one. And the other thing is, these newer see-through blinds are crazy. I've got 3 blinds sitting in my garage that I'll probably never use again because the field of vision is so small. But with these new blinds that are see-through on 3 of the walls, you keep that back wall behind you blackened out, but you can see through all the camo walls all the way around you. So when you're using this, again, you don't have to have all your shooting windows open, just really more your front one you've got pointed toward, that trail, but it allows you to see on both sides of you, so you're not having to open little windows up and peek. You think maybe something's coming, you're making noise, squeaking your chair when you do that. If you can get a really good see-through blind, I think it's really going to help your hunting experience a lot because you're going to have a much bigger field of vision. So anyhow, I hope this was helpful. And hey, good luck, and tune in next time for some more Whitetail Wisdom.